You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, episode 56. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Welcome to the first episode of our Season 3 coverage here on the Tricorder Transmissions. We are still your hosts, Jeff Hewlett.
And Craig Cohen.
All right, Craig, how do you feel, man? This is Season 3 finally on us.
I know, it's exciting, man, and it's amazing that we've got 2 seasons behind us, 1 in front of us, and I gotta say, the wrap-up, the 2 wrap-up episodes I thoroughly enjoyed. I hope everybody out there enjoyed those, and I still can't get over how enjoyable and great it was to listen back to that Mark Cushman interview related to his books, These Are the Voyages. Just a tremendous interview, and again, can't thank Mark enough for coming on and giving us so much time to talk about his books.
Yeah, we got a lot of compliments on that interview. I talked to a couple people and went over very well, so we're not the only ones that appreciate it. So I know some of our listeners out there really appreciated it as well. So great interview. I'm looking forward to having Mark back again in the future to talk about the 3rd book in the These Are the Voyages series.
Yes, I know he's looking forward to it as well. So it's very cool. That was a great discussion, and I, as much as I love these commentary episodes, I really love when we're able to sort of step aside and do those special supplemental episodes as well.
Oh, for sure. You know, speaking of things that our listeners also enjoy, we have Ashley and Jason from the Red Shirt Diaries back again to give us another sneak peek at what are little girls made of. What are we in store for this week, guys?
This week, we meet Omar and Mia, fellow Red Shirt security officers and friends of Ensign Williams. But when Captain Kirk calls them to the surface for an away mission, will these two ever return to the ship?
Dun, dun, dun.
I think you maybe know the answer.
So this one, of course, deals with the classic couple red shirts go on an away mission. What happens to them and the consequences of said away mission. Let me just say that they, a little bit of a spoiler, one of them does not quite return the same way they left. Oh. And Williams has to deal with the consequences of that. This, of course, the 2 other red shirts are played by Geek and Sundry's 2 Broke Geeks. So if you watch any Geek and Sundry vlogs, you'll recognize these 2 red shirts. And they were a blast to have on set. And they were a blast to play dead red shirts. What did I say there? Uh-oh, maybe a spoiler.
Uh-oh. Actually, can I ask a question about another possible spoiler?
Sure.
Do you guys actually answer the question, what are little girls made of? Because they don't answer that on the episode.
In my head, it's cupcakes, but no.
I think we more answer, what are 20-something males made of?
Ah, very good. All right, thanks, guys. Can't wait to see this one.
Woo, hope you enjoy it.
Always look forward to these new episodes, and it's something to bright up an otherwise dreary workday Monday.
Yeah, it's very cool. I love the fact that they're giving us these sort of previews, and it's really great to see how well the response has been overall to that series. It seems like they're doing really, really well, and it's great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's keep our fingers crossed that they're going to keep doing more new episodes further down the line. And something else we haven't done on the Tricorder Transmissions in, 3 weeks or so, or maybe even more, is we haven't talked about any Star Trek news. So we're a little bit behind the times on Star Trek news. So we did miss one pretty big thing in the Trek universe by about 2 weeks or so. And I think it's still worth mentioning because I know we haven't talked about it on air, but we did have a pretty heated discussion about it on our Facebook page. And that is William Shatner in Star Trek 3 or not? Yes. And how do you feel about it?
Yeah.
So, Craig, has your opinion changed?
I love William Shatner. I love seeing William Shatner play Captain Kirk. I'd like to think I won't pass judgment until I see how he's utilized. I think they're in a really difficult spot in finding a unique way to do it that's going to work. But either way, Kirk still died at the end of Generations.
Yeah, but it's an alternate timeline now.
Exactly. So we're going to be seeing really Chris Pine's Kirk older. And what's interesting about that is it's a Kirk that's had a whole different life.
Yes. So we don't know how it's going to play out, whether it's going to be... I think the rumor that I was reading most recently said that it would be something along the lines of the alternate universe older Kirk meeting up somehow with the original timeline Spock. Yeah, I'm not sure how they're going to wrap that around, but I mean, there's a million ways they could do it. It is science fiction, and you do have the clean slate of the new timeline. So
yeah, I don't remember where I read it, but somebody online somewhere mentioned that what would be really cool is if you incorporate the mirror universe and sort of have old mirror Kirk. Which would be pretty neat. And I don't know. We've talked a lot about the mirror universe, and it seems like that would be something that the filmmakers would want to explore just because it offers so many possibilities. And it also offers a way for you to utilize the same actors in multiple roles.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I'm sure that if we sat here and speculated, we come up with our own theories and ways that they could bring Kirk back, and maybe Corby made another clone of Kirk that's still kind of hanging around down there, and somehow they unearth him. I don't know.
Yeah. So, but you didn't state what your opinion was.
Well, essentially the same. Essentially the same as yours. I'm not going to pass judgment on it. I would love to see Shatner in a movie, and I think my opinions of the new JJ Universe films are pretty well trodden at this point. I'm happy that they're keeping the franchise alive, and I've been very supportive of them, although I had some criticisms. But whatever they're going to do in the next movie, whether Shatner's in it or not, I'm glad that they're doing another one, and it's actively in production. There's no it doesn't seem to be any question that they're going to make another one. So I like that there's that level of enthusiasm, and the studios are behind it and they're pushing forward. So if they can find a way to work Shatner in, I'm open to that.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, with the 50th anniversary coming up, it would be a huge whiff, swing and a miss, if they didn't have a huge theatrical film in theaters to sort of cap off the celebration of that, that 50th year.
Absolutely. I agree completely. So power to him. Get Shatner in there, and if you can wedge a couple more of them in there, go ahead.
I say get every living original series cast member.
Why not? They could do some sort of a flashback scene or something, right? With originals universe Spock, right? He could be telling, the new timeline people about the last time he saw a couple of them, or the last adventure they were on, and they're kind of older, getting ready to retire, right? Because Spock lives longer than the rest of them did, right?
Well,
so
yeah.
They could pull that off. Why not? All right. Well, anyway, we had a heated talk about this on our Facebook page with a couple of our listeners. So if you have an opinion,
head on over to the Facebook group, because it's really been a lot of fun interacting with everyone over there the last couple weeks.
Yeah, and we've got some new people floating in there. So very cool that we're getting much more activity on the Facebook page. And let's see what else there is. Well, this is going to really rub our friend Chris of the Super Panel the wrong way. There is, in December, coming out a new photo novel featuring Harry Mudd.
Oh.
Yes, called Made Out of Mud. So this will be Harry's return to the original series in comic book form. So this will be very, very cool. I'm looking forward to reading it myself. It looks like there's some Klingons in there, and you got not a lot of detail here. But it will be a John Byrne photo novel, as we've seen in the past, which are pretty excellent.
Yeah, you've read a couple of them, right?
Yeah, very enjoyable. Very, very enjoyable. The Mirror one was fantastic. So supposedly there may be some tribbles in this as well.
Very
so
cool.
Maybe we'll get our Harry Mudd plus tribbles fix that we've been talking about.
Yeah, wow, finally.
Yeah. So that's about it. I know. Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. There is one more thing I thought I would bring up. Another Shatner-related thing, and his new DIY network show, The Shatner Project, will be debuting later this month on the DIY network. So that's the one where he's going to. This is about the renovations of his home.
Yeah.
So it's a 6-episode series. So Bill and his wife will be transforming their house, and I'm sure there'll be all kinds of drama because it's a TV show. Things will go wrong, and timelines will be missed, and there'll be deadlines galore that will be missed, and everybody will be tense, but it'll all work out in the end. I probably just gave away the entire show, but it'll be worth watching because our man Shatner will be on it.
Oh, yeah, totally. I'm going to keep my eyes open for that.
Yeah, very, very cool. So that is about it for the news this week. And with that, we will dive into Spock's Brain. You ready to roll on it, Craig?
Oh, yeah, totally.
All right, so Spocks Brain was the first episode in the 3rd season to air. It aired on September 20th, 1968, and we got a remaster on June 9th, 2007.
And a quick plot rundown. The Enterprise is raided by an alien force that steals Spock's brain, leading Kirk and McCoy in a desperate race to retrieve it.
So we will get started with the scene-specific commentary in 3, 2, 1. All right, what is this strange ship in the remaster here?
Yeah, somebody got pretty creative.
Yeah, they must have really had a good time designing that, because that doesn't look anything, I don't think, like the original episode. But interesting shot of the bridge here. The first shot we see of the bridge is from behind the captain's chair. So you're seeing the navigation screen and everything else. And here's that apparatus that's coming up out of the console for Sulu that we see every now and then.
Yeah.
So, and there's another shot from behind Chekhov and Sulu. We don't see that a heck of a lot.
No, it's funny, though, that is the angle that you think of if you remember the old Star Trek playset from the 70s, though, that had the the view screen there. And I remember that was the view that I saw a lot of the times. And man, I wish I still had that.
Did you notice that Sulu got the first line of Broadcast Season 3?
Ah, good for him.
Yeah. A little makeup for all that time he spent on the Green Berets in Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get to do a heck of a lot.
Yeah.
But once again, everybody's on the bridge with the exception of McCoy.
Yeah.
At this point.
Is Scotty sort of working a new hairdo here?
It looks a little different.
Yeah, he's doing like sort of got a lot more forehead going on.
Yeah, he definitely does it. Shatner actually looks kind of a little bit older.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that far removed from Season 2, but for some reason he looks a little bit different in this episode than he has previously. Maybe I'm just looking into it a little too much. But
I don't think so. You know, he's...
Well, Scotty
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially next to Leonard Nimoy, who never seems to age during the initial run.
Not at all. Scotty, by the way, was marveling at this other ship, saying that it's an ion propulsion.
Yeah.
So that's something we haven't heard about.
Yeah. Doohan did that really well throughout the series, those moments where he was sort of excited from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah, well, it really upped his geek cred.
Yeah.
He really believed that he was an engineer because he could recognize technologies they didn't even possess yet.
Yeah, it was a cool aspect of his character. It was somebody that really sort of loved what he did, and it seemed like that was really what he focused on. Like, that was the kind of stuff he would enjoy doing in his spare time.
Yeah, he probably read a lot of technical manuals.
Yeah.
But once again, all-powerful alien that has some sort of a knockout device.
Yeah. That
can knock it. Look at poor Shatner. He's like laying face down on his chair with his butt sticking out.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
This is a pretty interesting sequence in our teaser.
Yeah, I like how she kind of just puts her hand on Spock's head and smiles. Then you get the fade out, and you're wondering what the heck is going on here.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's been, in my prep for this episode, there's been a lot of, I've seen a lot of talk about one of the, there's a lot of criticism of this episode.
Oh, sure.
It's considered by a large majority of fans as one of the worst episodes of the original series.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I saw that I thought maybe we could discuss is how and why they found the Enterprise and, more importantly, Spock.
Well, do we want to give out the spoilers of things that are going to happen in the rest of the episode? Because I think if we talk about the Spock angle, we may be giving away what actually happens to Spock.
Okay.
Further on in the episode, but that is a very good question. Mm-hmm. And
so let's back pocket that, and as the episode progresses, we can delve into that question a little bit deeper.
Sure.
Great
Absolutely.
Remastered
I
shot
love that.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, the ship's kind of tilted there.
Mm-hmm.
So how long do you think they were knocked out for?
Considering the bridge looks like it's sort of like in almost like standby mode there.
Yeah.
I don't know, an hour?
It's hard to say.
It definitely wasn't like a 2-minute type thing.
No, I was thinking at least an hour or 2 or 3.
Yeah, because for the bridge to go into that like standby mode.
Well, I think the power kind of dimmed down before the credits came on.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was her doing or somebody hit the wrong button somewhere when they fell over.
Yeah. But meanwhile, McCoy is up and about. So did those folks wake up before the bridge? And it seems like they woke up way before the bridge because they've got Spock in this whole apparatus.
Well, I think McCoy says they found him like that.
Yeah. Oh, in the machine.
In the machine, yeah. So
goodness, yeah. I'm totally showing the fact that I've only watched this episode twice in preparation.
Well, McCoy also called Kirk Jim over the intercom, and usually that's reserved for more emotional conversations.
Yeah.
So you could tell how distraught McCoy was when he found Spock here, sans brain.
Yeah, and I think that everybody involved here does a great job, Shatner especially, selling the fact that Spock's brain has been removed. The sort of absurdity of the idea, what a grave situation it is, and the concern for their friend. I think all the acting here is really on point.
No, I agree that they definitely take it very seriously, but I'm going to throw something out there to you, another point for discussion.
All right.
Now, you said that the brain being taken out of Spock's head was kind of what did you call it? Like a ridiculous premise or ridiculous? Yeah.
Ridiculous, absurd, yeah.
But, this is sci-fi.
Totally.
I mean, I don't really think it's that absurd in the context of Star Trek itself.
Well, no, I sort of meant absurd in the sense that it's just such an outrageous situation.
Oh, sure.
Even in the future that is Star Trek, the concept of being able to take a brain is there, but it's not something I think anybody on this crew ever thought they'd encounter.
Oh, probably not. Well, we've seen them encounter tons of things they never thought they would encounter before.
Good point.
So that's one of the things that I've seen as an argument against this episode being, one of the worst is that, they take the guy's brain out of his head and then they put it back in. I mean, how ridiculous and absurd is that? But, this is medical technology that's supposed to be way, way ahead of our current medical technology. I mean, who's to say out of all the bizarre things we've seen in Star Trek so far and will see in the future in other series and movies that, this really isn't so weird.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, as soon as Star Trek introduces something like the transporter, it's not really there aren't really going to be too many leaps that I have to take to believe things.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, and you know what? What I thought about too when I this discussion that McCoy and Kirk are having, where McCoy's asking Kirk, "Where are you going to find Spock's brain?" Mm-hmm. This could have been the search for Spock.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the title of Star Trek 3 could have fit this episode perfectly. So we also have a bomb that drops here. We got the Star Trek timer.
Yeah,
they love to have the ticking timer. Bomb. Yeah. So 24 hours. Exactly. That's how long the Vulcan body can last without a brain in it. And don't ask me how McCoy could possibly know that. How many Vulcans have there been without brains?
So there's another unique shot.
Yep, I love this. They changed things up a little bit in the third season.
Yeah, well, I guess it's worth mentioning that this is an episode that was directed by a series regular in terms of directing, and this is the last episode we're going to have him direct. He directed the season 2 finale, Assignment Earth, and that is Mark Daniels, who did 15 episodes in total, including the classics like The Man Trap, Space Seed, Mirror Mirror, The Doomsday Machine, I Mud, to name a few. So as we've done in the past, we're going to be bidding a fond farewell to Mark Daniels and his work on Star Trek, the original series.
Yep, sad to see him go, and
Yeah.
that's something we talked with Mark Cushman about, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, during the interview. So, going to be very interested to see the full story behind that in the third book.
Yeah,
coming
well,
out soon.
while we're mentioning our discussion with Mark, we should also mention that this episode was written by former show producer Gene L. Kuhn, writing under the name Lee Cronin. And for more details related to the name change, I guess you can listen to our interview or wait for the season 3 book to come out. But he had previously written the last episode we watched that he wrote as Gene L. Kuhn was Bread and Circuses. And we're going to see him again this season writing under the Cronin name on Spectre of the Gun.
Oh, very cool. And something that I really like about this episode is what we're seeing right now. You've got Kirk, Sulu, and Chekhov using their collective knowledge and brain power and intuition to try to figure out which of the 3 planets in this system they could have taken Spock's brain to.
Yeah.
And you've got technical knowledge here. You've got the ship's data banks. You've got data about the planets. You've got Chekhov and Sulu making their recommendations. But you've got Shatner's seasoned intuition that's going to go against everything that seems logical. And he's going to go with his gut and pick what seems to be the least likely of the candidate planets.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool. I love that. I think it's a really cool Kirk moment.
It is a great Kirk moment, and I also love the fact that Chekhov was utilized the way he was utilized. It seemed like they let him get up from that chair, if you will, and do something.
Yeah, well, I think that I had heard in an interview somewhere, I think it was with DC Fontana a while back, that they, going into the third season, they tried to phase out a lot of the Chekhov comedy bits, you know, with the Russian stuff and things being invented in Russia and all of that, and try to give him a little bit more of a serious role. And I think that's showing here.
Yeah.
That he's not just the young guy on the ship. He's actually got some brains, and he's willing to offer opinions to Kirk, whether or not Kirk accepts them. And I think it also shows that Kirk is really, trusts these 2 guys, and we haven't gotten a lot of interaction between the 3 of these guys.
Yeah.
At all. It's usually, Kirk, Spock, Kirk and Bones, and Kirk and Scotty, and even Uhura's getting in on it here. So you've got I guess what some people would maybe call the lesser of the main characters outside of the Trinity, and they're all coming together in this pretty cool scene here. I really love this.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
It's like Scooby-Doo Star Trek.
Yes. And how often do you see that colored shirt multiplied that many times on screen?
Yeah, I wonder. I wonder if anybody has ever done any sleuthing to figure out if that's the only time you see 3 guys on the screen together with gold shirts and nobody else.
Yeah, and the gold background working.
Yeah, look at that. This is great. I loved seeing from behind Sulu so often in this episode. It gives you kind of a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
On the bridge. So, commercial fade out. We got another Spock will die moment. So they only have time to go to 1 out of these 3 planets before Spock's body is done. Mm-hmm. So they picked the glacial planet, of course.
Yeah, and another great remastered effect.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. It's very cool. So, once again, we have tricorders being used in a bizarre way.
Yeah, and we've got 2 red shirts.
3. including Scotty.
Well, yeah. Well,
you don't count Scotty.
Nobody's worrying for Scotty.
I find it's interesting. Why are I guess the red shirts have belts on, but it looks like they have tucked in shirts where Kirk and Chekhov's shirts are out. So it's interesting that the security guys and Scotty had their shirts tucked in. But once again, kind of giant Neanderthal type men running around. We've seen them before in other episodes.
Like, this one almost reminded me, of the guy that Pike fights. The guy that he sort of spears. The guy that jumps on his own spear.
Yes, good observation. That's pretty apropos. I like that. But I love how both Chekhov and Scotty are holding the tricorders in this bizarre way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who's right and who's wrong? Because usually Spock holds it, kind of vertically up and down, and with the screen facing front. And Scotty and Chekhov are holding it with the bottom of the tricorder. They're holding it, horizontally and with the bottom facing out and looking down on the screen.
I'd like to think it's a multi-purpose viewing screen. Sort of like our phones nowadays, depending on how you turn them.
Huh. All right. Okay. I wasn't kind of sure where I was going to go with that, but being a Spock guy, I was going to call Spock right. But Scotty's an engineer. You'd think he would know how to use the tricorder. So
I almost wonder if every tricorder is sort of customized for the user.
Oh, hey, there you go.
They can go in and design. They go into the tricorder store.
Yeah, there you go.
And customize their experience.
Yeah, they put their widgets on their home screens, and Scotty's got like a Scottish background, and Chekhov's got a Russian background. See, now how effective are these guys? They throw their only weapons. Yeah. And then bolt charge in. Mm-hmm. But so much for the Prime Directive. Yeah. Kirk stuns one of the guys, but this is one of those instances where I think the budget kind of hurt a little bit with the makeup on these Neanderthal guys.
Yeah, that and the costuming too, I think.
Yeah. It's a little lacking, but as with a lot of things on these shows, that the budget kind of, I think the show unfortunately had to take a hit on a lot of these things, but I don't think it doesn't really take away overall from the message of the show, because this show, if you think about it, as we get into it a little more, there is a very interesting premise going on here that I think is overridden by the fact that Spock's brain has been taken out of his head. People seem to focus on that, but I would shows a very interesting message behind it.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I think overall, especially when you watch older movies or TV shows, if the story is delivering, you can forgive a lot of things.
Yes, I completely agree.
And I think that's even true more in the past than it is today, because today when you see bad effects, a lot of the times they're that Sci-Fi Channel level of bad, to the point that they take you out of the experience.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas
definitely.
with something like this, you sort of take notice of it and then get caught back up in the story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can see that. Were you taken out of this a little bit here during this sequence? Did you feel that Kirk and Scotty were pushing a little bit too hard about this whole female and having a mate thing? Yeah. It seemed like that's a very odd line of questioning. It seemed, why would they bother asking him about stuff like that? Yeah. No, I totally agree. It just seemed a little bit strange from a storytelling, from a writing aspect. But they've been warned now about the others, quote unquote. And there are apparently some technologically advanced people on this planet that are stealing these Neanderthal men away and dragging them somewhere. And they're very afraid of them. So we've been warned that these others will be coming, and pretty soon. Yeah, actually. Mm-hmm. So Jeff, this episode aired on a Friday night back in '68. This was I guess it's a new night and time, right? Yep. So that was, as we said in the intro, September 20th, 1968. Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting to sort of just go back and look at some stuff that was going on September 20th, 1968.
Cool.
And I found a cool little interesting fact that on this date, the date this aired, Mickey Mantle hit his final home run, number 536, in a game versus the Boston Red Sox.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool fact.
Put it into perspective, people were probably catching up with the Yankee game, while watching Star Trek or vice versa.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I was, it always, for me, it's always putting things into perspective that, I enjoy. And here we've got our remote controlled Spock, which is a great sort of image with that great push in they do. And it's almost sold like a huge dramatic moment when it's just a radio controlled Spock.
Yeah, pretty much. I love how non-intuitive the remote control McCoy is using. It has a bunch of colored buttons that are not labeled on it. And I don't know how you're supposed to know which buttons do what. So there looks like maybe a little joystick to make him move, but I have no clue. There must have been at least 8 to 10 buttons on that thing. Yeah. I guess you have to have it. I wonder, is that something that McCoy rigged up on his own, or is that something that they have in stock in sick bay? A brain control, body control device.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think it's an apparatus that served a different purpose that McCoy sort of rigged up to do what they needed it to. But the thing is, what is it really? It's got nothing to interact with.
Maybe it's totally bypassing the empty hole inside of his head and interacting directly with the nerve endings that were left over when his brain was taken out. That's feasible. Yeah. It's a brain substitute. Just think we order a few cases of those and hand them out to people, and maybe we'll be in a better place.
I think it would have been cool if they had done like some kind of Spock marionette thing where there was maybe a big, something with strings that hovered above him, and you were able to sort of operate him like a marionette.
They could have put him in a pike chair.
Yes.
Why not? I love that Kirk shoots first. Doesn't ask questions, man. This is a different Kirk than we're used to.
Well, he saw her going for a wrist, and it's that whole "fool me once" type, argument. Where on the bridge, the last time that happened, they woke up and Spock's brain was missing.
Yeah, everybody had a hangover. Oh man. So in underground installation, yet again, very cool lighting. I love the purple lighting in this. Yeah. Yeah. So now we're gonna discover that these women underground here have the intellect of a child. Yeah. Yeah. Some more really, really good acting going on here with all of these women. I think it's a combination of really sharp writing and some really great performances. Yeah, and McCoy is able to tell whether she's lying or not with his tricorder. Yeah. That's pretty fascinating. Yeah, I guess that's tuned into very much how our lie detectors work nowadays. Yeah, just doesn't need any electrodes. Yeah, it's probably just registering heart rate and other body rhythms in the body, and maybe even brain activity. Oh, potentially. So we've got some different distinctions that these aliens make. We've got Morg and iMorg. We're really not sure at this point what those things are. Yeah. But Kirk and company are neither Morg nor iMorg. So we'll find out later on who they are. But now here's a question for you. Why does Spock's brain have Spock's voice? Exactly. How did you know where I was going with that? Spock's disembodied brain has Spock's voice, but his vocal cords are still back in his body. Yeah. I don't know how to approach that. Yeah, I don't think there was any way for them to do this that wouldn't have us asking questions. Yeah, I know. That's the obvious answer, but... Yeah, because I guess his
he's Spock is sort of like what, the ghost in the machine at this point.
Yes.
So is that what the voice sounds like inside of Spock's head? Is Spock's brain creating that voice?
Oh, potentially. And there's another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why was Kirk's phaser holstered there? He's in a hostile place. He knows that he only has a split second to react when someone sees him. Why would he have holstered his phaser at that point?
Plot convenience?
Damn it. I was hoping for a different answer, but okay, we'll go with that. I just thought that was a little odd because he was so quick to fire right out of the elevator, but then he quickly calmed down and felt at ease.
Yeah.
And put his phaser away. So the women are feeding these guys here who are wearing these funky belts. As we're seeing the phasering being reenacted.
Like charades.
Yeah. So very interesting. And now we see our heroes also have, and Spock, by the way, also have these bizarre belts.
Yeah.
These giant green buckles on them. So we've been captured, as we've been many times before. And I guess she can wake people up just as easily as she can put them to sleep by pressing the exact same buttons.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Why would you need these belts if you have that button that can disable them without wearing a belt? Because she was able to disable everybody on the bridge. Or is the belts a more foolproof way of doing this so you knock out only who needs to be knocked out?
I'm not sure. Maybe I'm thinking that I was thinking that the belts were more of a kind of like the agonizer from Mirror Mirror. So it's a way to cause pain instead of knocking them out, because you keep knocking them out and waking them up and knocking them out and waking them up. If you're trying to interrogate them or force them into a different type of behavior, it may be more effective to. And I think they also use that on the males of the planet to control them. So I guess that maybe it was a habit. So since they're seeing other males, even though they're not the same ones on the planet normally, they would just use the same tactic.
Oh, yeah, no, you know what? Totally. That's an excellent point that I sort of overthought.
Well, that's why we're here talking about it, so we can overthink and discuss these things, right? I mean, that's the whole point of the podcast. So pretty cool that we can kind of hash these things out.
Yeah.
But we're going to have, in a moment here, I think one of... actually, and this is great too, by the way, that you have, like, once again, you have aliens who are willing to let them go. He says, you know what, you're perfectly willing, you can go home, we'll let you go home. Just, leave the way you came. Yeah. But, now they're going to push it because they know Spock's brain is there and they're going to try to figure out a way to get it back. But they're taking the opportunity to actually kind of flip the script and try to interrogate the women instead and figuring out why they live underground and why there's guys that live up on the surface and, who the leader is. And, I guess they're trying to resort to some sort of Starfleet diplomacy at this point. So, and all they're getting met with is confusion. And we're getting the build up to what may have been one of the greatest bits of dialogue in all of Star Trek. But, here we go. I don't want to talk over this in case people are actually watching along. So I want to give people, a moment of silence to really, here we go. Ah, yes. What is brain? I was wondering, and I think we talked about this on Instant Messenger earlier. I was wondering, and something that I wanted to ask Mark Cushman about, and hopefully will be in his book. I wonder if that was an ad lib or if the line was actually written that way. Yeah, that's definitely something that I'd be interested to know, because it would explain the process, though, the writing process versus the process on set. Absolutely. And I if she just said, what is brain, I could understand. Maybe that was the way it was written. But the way she actually read the line just seemed like she may have embellished a little bit and threw some more emotion in there.
Yeah, and that's the character Kara, played by Marge Doucet, born in 1936. And she was also around this time on 3 episodes of Hogan's Heroes.
All right.
And she was on Guiding Light from 1993 to 2009.
Wow.
With an Emmy nomination for that role in 1995.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Always love to see these actors in these Star Trek episodes go on to, get some recognition and be in a long-running series down the road.
Oh, totally.
Very cool. So Sulu is left in charge.
Yeah.
Which I really like. That's great. We don't see that too often. Usually they hand it to Scotty.
Yeah.
But,
and it's interesting that we get multiple. We earlier in that sort of this break, if you will, we had Kirk's log, and now we had Sulu recording one as well.
Yeah, the logs seem kind of inconsistent sometimes. Remember back in the Gamesters of Triskelion where Kirk is nowhere near the Enterprise, but he's recording a captain's log with apparently no device capable of recording a log. So, I guess it was just up to the writer, who was recording it and where. And I probably wasn't something they thought much about, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but... Oh, and we see all of their stuff is just kind of laid out there.
Yeah.
On the table. Just laying there. But, one thing that I liked about this episode, I guess we could start talking about some of the things, some of the other concepts that we had glossed over earlier in hopes of not ruining things. But you had brought up the, why did they pick Spock, right?
Yeah.
So my thought on why they picked Spock, and I don't know if this is going to make a lot of sense or not, but I was thinking that, they obviously this... society is dependent on that central controller. We didn't know, not really a central computer. It's a brain inside of a computer that controls everything. So all of their environmental stuff, all their food and everything is controlled by, and they're dependent on it, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess what I'm thinking is, everything happens by random chance. In this series, so just by random chance, the Enterprise happened to be passing somewhere close enough to them to be detected, and of course, Spock's brain, out of everybody's brain on the ship, I don't know if we could even argue that anybody has a superior brain as far as being somebody who can control a lot of stuff and multitask well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why she kind of walked past everybody else who was laying on the bridge and kind of zoned in on Spock's brain, because I think his brain was best suited for this purpose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking that, knowing the situation they were in, they launched a small, a small ship, and with the hopes of encountering a suitable brain. And if not, they were in big trouble.
Yeah, well,
so I think it was one of those things where they were lucky to stumble upon the Enterprise, and doubly lucky to have access to Spock.
Oh, sure. I wouldn't debate that. And
yeah, that isn't a deal breaker for me when it comes to this episode, but it was something that I had run across when reading about what other people thought of this episode, and I thought, and I still think it's a valid criticism, but I think, ultimately with stories, you can take any story to a previous point and ask how or why did something happen, where ultimately at the end of the day, you just have to say, well, it happened because this was the story they were going to tell.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the train of thought you need to follow when you watch just about all of these Star Trek episodes. But there's an underlying theme in this episode that I think is actually really, really good. Mm-hmm. And that is, you have a technologically advanced society that became so dependent on their systems and technology for survival that the people actually regressed to such a point where they couldn't exist without the technology.
Oh, yeah.
Which is something that's kind of happening today, isn't it?
Sure.
here we are in 2014, and you got people who, walk down the street and drive their cars by staring at their cell phones, and everyone is so dependent on every type of technology. I mean, what would happen if all of a sudden we had no more electricity? I mean, our lives would be, I don't even even know. Would we even know how to survive anymore? I mean, I don't even know if most of us are capable of going out and, planting crops and hunting for food and cooking things on our own like that and finding shelter. And you know what I mean? I don't know if we would be able to survive without all of our modern conveniences.
Yeah, I think there would be an incredible thinning of the herd.
Sure.
But, there are, and I think that's sort of the thesis of this episode is that man finds a way.
Perhaps.
You have to get back out there and start digging the soil again. But,
Yep.
It's sort of ingrained in us that, as a race, and granted, these aren't humans, but they're human-like. It's ingrained in us that we have that survival mechanism. And it's weird because I'll watch my cat go drink water out of his dish, and he'll do this thing where he acts like he's digging in front of it, that's like ingrained in his DNA.
Yep.
I guess somewhere down the line, his ancestors used to dig for their water.
Well, will there come a time that our technology is so far advanced, like these people, that we've become so dependent on it that we can't possibly survive without it? Like, if they didn't have Spock's brain in that machine, like they're not going to in a short while, they're going to be pretty much left to their own devices, and who knows if they're actually going to be able to survive. Kirk doesn't seem to care.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I freed you. Now go live the way I think you should live.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point there in the sense that there might be a technology point where we sort of go past the point of no return, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't know. I mean, maybe we'll see it in our lifetime. Hopefully not, but maybe we will. But I think McCoy said something to the effect that he's going to say something to the fact that their mental faculties are atrophied.
Yeah.
From non-use. So they haven't used their brains much at all, and that's why they're like grown-ups or children in grown-up bodies.
Right.
So that kind of sums it up for me pretty well.
Oh yeah. And I love this whole moment where they used Spock to disable the device, and I just love the way it was shot. It had a little, the terror on her face at this sort of unstoppable being moving towards her, almost like a Terminator.
Yeah, I guess you have to think that all of the men on this planet she's used to being able to control with a push of a button.
Yeah. And
now there's some automaton that she can't control. And if you think that she's got a childlike brain, it must be terrifying.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they did the cutaway to the sort of expressionless Spock, just showing that this was just a mindless body that was being controlled by Kirk.
Yeah, I think, speaking of that, I think Nimoy's acting in this episode, I think is really great. He sells this really well.
Well, yeah, and it's sort of going against every tool that Nimoy normally uses.
Yep.
Normally, yeah, granted, he's not showing emotion, but that doesn't mean he's still not doing some really interesting things with his face, whereas here, he's got to stay stoic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this. I mean, you can see that the terror in her face, and I love that portrayal.
Yeah.
Throughout the scene, is she really, really sells that. You really get the impression that she is what her character is. She is a terrified child, and she doesn't know what to do anymore. And, she's, begging and pleading with them not to take away Spock's brain because she has no clue how she would survive without it.
Yeah, and you almost think that if, in this scenario, if it wasn't Spock's brain, if you'd feel a lot more sympathetic because...
Oh, sure.
You can definitely empathize with her, but knowing Spock and loving Spock the way we do, sort of like Kirk decides, well, you know what, SOL,
Yeah.
too bad.
So is this another case of the villain is not really a villain?
Oh, totally. It's villain by circumstance.
Right. Yeah, good way of putting it. So now they put her in this teacher apparatus.
I love this. This concept is great.
It is. Yeah.
It's like it stores all the collective knowledge that you can access. It's like the internet uploaded to your brain.
Yeah, and the best part about it is it's all stored in a tape storehouse. They were using tapes.
How many miles of tape do you think they used?
Oh, good God. I can't even imagine. I'm thinking back to all the mixtapes I had as a kid. How many miles of cassette tape I had. So there's got to be, I don't even know. So now all of a sudden she is hyper intelligent. She's been infused with the knowledge of the ancient people from this planet, I guess, who built all of this technology. And how nice of them to leave behind this apparatus, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and now she knows how to use the phaser. Uh-oh. And it's set to kill.
Oof.
Uh-oh. Now the tables have turned yet again. And I love that line. So this is the knowledge you have brought me. So what she's saying is, in essence, is Kirk has brought them that human brand of violence, right?
Uh-huh.
That willingness to pull a trigger. And they didn't have that on this planet. They didn't have guns.
Yeah.
I mean, the barbarian guys up on the surface had rocks and sticks, but they didn't have projectile weapons. All they had were devices that could put you to sleep. So that this is kind of a prime directive bend here.
Yeah, and considering that those devices to put them to sleep weren't even designed with sort of violent intent.
Good point. See, I do not know killing. I do not wish to kill.
Oh, I love that teamwork there, where Scotty knew that if he gave Kirk an opening,
yep,
Kirk would do what he needed to do. It's that subtle sort of, nonverbal communication between crew members, which only can develop through time.
Yep, I love it. It's another little character build.
Yeah.
There. So you get to know, I mean, they all know each other so well from doing all the service together that, Scotty can seize whatever opportunity he sees to help Kirk out of a jam.
Yeah.
So incredible stuff. So Kirk's still trying to convince her to put Spock's brain back. And, I got to hand it to her. She won't betray her people.
Yeah.
She's not going to. She's sticking up for him.
Yeah. Well, you've got Spock's brain now is controlling every aspect of this sort of underground society.
Mm-hmm.
He's the brain.
Yeah.
And without it, all of their technology will cease to function.
Exactly. So
and now we've got McCoy really sort of doing a huge Mac Daddy moment for him, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. So he's willing to put his life on the line to save Spock. And I love that Spock is trying to talk them out of saving his own life.
Yeah, Spock's great at that.
Yeah, do not jeopardize your life for me.
Yeah. Spock sort of has that sort of martyr thing that he likes to do.
He does. And McCoy is once again relying on I can bring these technological advancements, back to the rest of the universe.
Right.
He's kind of going with that angle again. But and Kirk, that's an amazing moment to me. Kirk is willing to let McCoy risk his own life to save Spock. He actually said, "Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and put the teacher on." That's great. So I guess you can make an argument here. You could have a discussion on who Kirk would choose if he had to save one of them.
So here's some interesting cosplay, right?
Good call.
The teacher.
Yeah, you could get yourself like one of those hair dryer domes.
Yeah.
From the hair salon, and put some spark plugs through it. I think it would look awesome.
Yeah.
And you could walk around pretending you're really, really smart.
Yeah.
Maybe we could pull that off. That's an idea for the next convention. And
you know what? I'm going to keep my my yellow and blue shirts just in case.
all right. I love McCoy right after the teacher is done, and he's realizing how to reattach Spock's brain. I love this performance here.
It's great. It's him selling the fact that he's seeing with the mind now where the answer is so simple and clear cut.
Yep.
And even here where he's working and you have Scotty sort of watching along in awe
Yep.
at how fast he's working and
Total confidence on McCoy's face.
yeah. And also the fact that Scotty's able to watch this brain surgery without really being disturbed by it.
And no masks.
Yeah.
No hair nets. A junior mint could fall in there.
Yeah. That's
No,
a good
no.
point. McCoy doesn't even have gloves.
Yeah.
Although he never wears gloves in this series.
No, I think his hands are naturally sterile at this point. But I think McCoy, through this entire sequence of putting Spock's brain back in, I think the performance from beginning to end is spectacular.
It
from an
is,
acting
yeah.
standpoint.
Especially as he starts to lose it.
Yep. I love it. It's a big highlight of this episode for me. And that's another one of the reasons why I scratch my, here we go.
Yeah.
This is another one of my reasons why I scratch my head at people who say this is one of the worst episodes. I mean, if you really watch it and understand the themes that are going on, sure, there's some hokey stuff that happens, but there's hokey stuff that happens in tons of Star Trek episodes.
Yeah, I by no means is this, in my opinion, a worst episode contender because it entertains and it engages. And for me, the worst kind of television you can make is boring television.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is far from boring. And I'm not going to defend this episode because I don't think it's really worthy of being that defended. But if I was making a list, there's a lot of episodes I would stack above this. If anything, I say this episode has a little bit of it maybe repeats itself a little much. It might have been not quite enough story for 50 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I can see that point. I guess the only reason that I'm defending it is because people really attack it. I guess I feel like I have to stand up for a little bit more than I normally would, but I see your points completely.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had some interesting stuff going on here where Kara was sort of pleading with Kirk to not leave her people out in the cold, if you will, where they're going to be forced now to go to the surface and fend for themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
Kirk says, you can do this. You're going to have to, sort of, suck it up,
Mm-hmm.
get with the natives, if you will, and learn how to do this.
Yeah. And once again, Kirk teaches love.
Yeah.
That's his specialty.
Yeah. And now we have Spock doing his like old man voice.
Yeah, I love it. This whole sequence, I think, if you can look at it a bunch of different ways. It's kind of funny in a way that Spock is going to talk McCoy through reattaching his own brain.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. And he knows, Spock apparently knows how to reattach a brain.
Yeah.
So he used the sonic separator.
Yeah, so it's kind of a neat concept that he says, hey, figure out, how my hands and, my arm works, and I'll take it from there, So make sure you connect those properly, and we should be good.
Yeah, I love it. So what they're essentially doing is McCoy is going to poke every single nerve ending that's sticking out of his spinal column and see what it does, and then attach it to the proper receptacle in the brain. But you notice he moved one finger, and then he's moving the entire wrist. What about the other fingers?
Yeah.
I think we're cutting corners here. But then again, maybe they didn't have enough story to fit 50 minutes, or if they reattached every nerve, they would have had enough to fill 50 hours.
Yeah, they could have. All of season 3 could have been the Spock's brain being reconnected.
Yeah, maybe the rest of it is on the cutting room floor. The 50th anniversary of Star Trek will get the uncut version of Spock's brain, which is almost the entire series in length.
Yeah. Well, here's where we really get an idea of how great the technology is here, where you have Spock just had open skull brain surgery, reinsertion of the brain, but there is no visible scarring.
No, and the greatest part about it is that McCoy took the time to do Spock's hair right. Spock's got his full head of hair. Didn't have to shave his head at all.
Yeah.
So future brain surgery is a cakewalk.
Yeah.
You walk in and out with the same hairdo.
And now we've got some of this comedy that Gene Kuhn loves so much and really brought to his, was one of the aspects of his run was the comedy. And here we got a pretty funny moment where Spock's, picking up like he never left his body. And we get that great joke from McCoy is I never should have reconnected his mouth.
Great. And the eyebrow raise from Spock. I love it. It's a great, great ending. And I love that. That's a great comedic moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that Spock is taking the knowledge that he learned at being part of that computer system about the history of this planet to tell her all about the history of her own planet.
Yeah.
So, well, that's it. We are at the end of Spock's brain.
Yep.
And like seasons prior to this, we have to give our essential votes.
All right. I can go first if you want.
Absolutely.
I'm going to come right out and say it. I think this is an essential episode.
Wow.
Well, and I'm going to say that because if people are going to term an episode of the series the worst of the series, it's an episode that people need to see for themselves and make that decision for themselves. So I think for that reason alone, I would give this an essential vote. But I also think there's some really great character moments we saw there. The sort of development of Chekhov and Sulu and their interaction with the captain. And then also McCoy's choice at the end for me is, and how Kirk responds to that choice, I think are all great character moments that I think add a little bit of weight to my vote.
Wow, awesome. Well, I'm really glad that you went essential on this.
Okay.
Because as much as I defended this episode, I have to vote non-essential.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I love your reasoning, and you almost had me convinced. But as I've said in the past, I've got to stick to my own rules.
Sure.
And I know we have slightly different rules for making episodes essential, and I think that's one of the things that makes this show so much fun to do.
Right.
So for me, we got no introductions to new alien races that persist, so we don't see these people again. They're just kind of a one and done.
Yeah.
The character moments are great, but for me, it's I can't sell an essential on just character moments.
Right.
I need a bit more than that, so I can't give it an essential on that. And although I really do enjoy the overall concept and message of the episode, that also isn't enough. But your argument for having to see this for yourself is great, and I would love to give this a tip of the hat as a if you have time, sort of honorable mention type episode where, this is one of the ones that if you are talking to Star Trek fans of the original series, you may wind up getting into a conversation about the best and the worst, and chances are this one will come up in conversation. So, might be beneficial for you if you want to get into those fabled cocktail parties where they're discussing Star Trek. You may do yourself a favor by watching Spock's Brain and see for yourself if you really think it belongs in the bottom of the series.
Yeah, so this is now an interesting situation that we're in because we are planning to sit down with some of the super panel.
Yes.
To discuss Spock's Brain in a supplemental, and it will be the first time we do a supplemental episode that me and you split on whether or not the episode is essential.
Good call. That's great. I never thought about that before. All the other ones were all essentials, weren't they?
Yeah.
Wow. So this will be great. We can talk to, I think we're getting April and Vernon back on, and maybe if we're lucky, we might get a couple more people to chime in with their opinions. And I think this is going to be a great episode to discuss from a lot of different angles, so we can bring up some of these bigger topics that we talked about here and get their opinions on them. And maybe my vote can be swayed or your vote can be swayed. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I know it's funny. When the season 3 was approaching, we sort of reached out to Vernon in April and said, "Hey, season 3's coming. Is there any episodes you want to talk about?" And April's response was pretty great because she said, "I don't remember exactly how she said it, but she said, well, I kind of feel like I should talk about Spock's brain."
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty close to what
Yeah.
you said.
So I'm looking forward to both of their perspectives because they bring such great things to our supplementals, and they both have a really unique perspective on Star Trek. And I'm looking forward to April's opinion, and I'm really looking forward to see what Vernon has to say about this episode.
I have no idea where he's going to go with it.
I know. Vernon always seems to come out with some really, really great ideas and thoughts about some of these Star Trek episodes. We talk with him.
Yeah, and if anybody out there in listener land has anything that they would like to share about Spock's brain and have potentially be included in our upcoming supplemental discussion, feel free to post your opinions on our Facebook page or go on Twitter or our own website. So facebook.com/the Tricorder Transmissions, TTT_pod on Twitter, or the tricordertransmissions.com. And you can check out the forums button there, and you can go and share your thoughts with us on Spocks Brain, and we'd be happy to read some of them on the air.
Yeah.
All right. So anything further from you, Craig?
No, we've got one episode in season 3 under our belts.
All right. The roller coaster ride begins now. So we will see you next Sunday for the Enterprise incident.
Imagine a computer thousands of times more powerful than the most sophisticated computer we have today. Now imagine that computer being small enough to hold in one hand. Impossible? Not if you regard the human brain as a computer. Now, take a superior humanoid brain. What capabilities would it have? How much knowledge could it hold? Consider the many facets involved in thinking and research, medicine, technology, and science. Perhaps it could run a city, monitor and control electricity, water, traffic, gas, all the resources needed to keep a metropolis alive, much as it keeps a body alive. Let's dissect Spock's brain.
Spocks Brain. A promising title, and yet the mere mention of it sends shivers down the spine of most Star Trek fans. If you ranked every episode from best to worst, this one would almost undoubtedly be at the bottom. Let's face it, the plot is silly, the acting is only passable, altogether not one of our best. With that said, however, let's give it a second chance. Forget the silliness and think about it from a pure science fiction standpoint. It's time we all took a fresh look at Spock's brain.
Gene Kuhn wrote this episode under his pen name Lee Cronin. And according to critics, it's the worst episode of Star Trek ever produced. Criticism has come not so much from the premise of Spock's brain being stolen, but from the way in which the story was handled. Now, rumor has it that Kuhn, who was constantly at odds with Roddenberry over show content, wrote this script as a practical joke, ribbing Star Trek for taking itself way too seriously. It just goes to show that practical jokes sometimes backfire.
Are you still keeping an open mind? No pun intended. Well, silly plot aside, there are some interesting scientific possibilities in Spock's brain. Is it possible for a brain, disembodied or not, to directly affect the outside world? Scientists have shown how the electrical output of the brain can be used to run a small model train. But aside from pure electrical current, it's interesting to note some of the studies that have been done with regard to the brain actually controlling, not just powering, the outside world. Using a technique known as biofeedback, subjects have learned how to turn lights on and off by changing the alpha wave output of their brains. Now take that a step further. If you were to extrapolate this into the theory that the more powerful the brain, the more powerful the output, what would a truly superior brain, like Spock's, for instance, be able to do? Just something to think about.
Well, thank goodness the Enterprise was able to retrieve Mr. Spock with brain intact. During this tough third season, we all felt that our characters were being compromised and stories were becoming more far-fetched than ever before, but as this episode proved, probably the character most maligned was Mr. Spock. Leonard felt betrayed, and many of us felt cheated, considering the hard work done by the entire cast throughout the history of the series. It just wasn't fair, and we blamed the network, and no one individual. Because of poor ratings, we were now being left for dead by the network, but that, as they say, is showbiz.
I guess I should be flattered that Spock's brain was so desirable that someone would want to steal it. Thankfully, my own brain was given a respite during the week that this episode was shot. I was relieved of absorbing pages and pages of dialogue, which were typical for me during that period. There's something relaxing about walking around like a mindless robot for a week, even if it did look kind of silly.